How hard can it be to make a workbench? I've been using this Black & Decker workmate and it's fine, but actually for bigger projects and things that require a lot of beating, it's not the most stable. So I need to make a workbench that's cheap, quick to build, so I can get onto making things that I actually want to make, and sturdy. I can get all the pieces for one leg out of a 2x4, which is handy. I need 3 cuts, so we can make a sort of artificial half-lap joint. I'm using a 2x4 offcut as a spacer. There needs to be one at the bottom and one at the top. This is where the stretchers are going to go. I'm gluing and screwing them together. The glue is mainly doing all the holding. The screws are just to clamp it in place while it dries. I also recently bought one of these glue spreaders because I don't really like getting the glue all over my fingers, and I thought it was a good idea. But actually, now I think it's a bit of a gimmick. What happens is it works okay, but then you have to use your fingers to spread the glue in the gaps that it misses. So you've just got glue all over your fingers and over a spreader. So, not a fan. Now I'll put it on the floor to add the stretchers in my lovely colourful clothing that I use when I'm gluing, because I seem to just spread the glue all over me instead of on my fingers. Anyway, I checked it the square and then screwed it together. As you can see on the right side there's a bit of a gap, but I can cut a wedge and fill that in later, so there's no problem. And then I need to cut the cross pieces to attach those 2 frames together. I'm using this tenon sword because I thought it would give me a cleaner cut, and it's a lot more work, but it does give me a cleaner cut, so worth it in the end. And I've got my safety slippers on, representing Greg's. I screwed these cross pieces in just to help with alignment when I'm gluing up. I'm poking out a few screws to use as sort of alignment pins. These screws are just going to hold it together while it dries. I'm going to drill them out and use dowels instead to hold them because supposedly they're stronger than screws. I'm not quite sure. I thought I'd try it. And I also ditched the spreader. It was just annoying, cumbersome. I cut the dowels up into smaller lengths and now I'm just paring down one end. This is just to get them in the holes easier. And then I'm cutting down a small channel on the sides so glue and air can escape because, ask me how I know, a hydrolock dowel, as I believe it's called, is a real bitch to get out. It's not fun. I'm using a clamp to try and avoid some of the tear out I'm having drilling out these screw holes. I think the solution is probably just to not buy cheap timber, but I did. It doesn't need to be pretty. You don't build a workbench to look at it, you build it to use it, so it's fine. I'm just drilling out these screw holes with a 10mm drill bit, the dowels are 10mm too, and gluing them up and driving them in. And a quick PSA to the person who invented the ratcheting screwdriver. You, my friends, are an absolute genius. It is so satisfying. It's amazing. I don't have a flush cut saw, so a tenon saw takes care of most of the waste, and I can come back with a chisel and take off the rest. You can see where the drilling has torn out around some of these holes, and while it's not ideal, it's not the end of the world. It only goes a few millimeters deep. It's not a huge issue. I'm putting a cross piece in the middle of the two frames at the top and the bottom because they're about 4 foot across. I feel like it could do with some extra support in the middle. And you can see here that the lines are just for suggestion. They're not that important. But I'm using a countersink bit because the tear out is horrible. And using quite long screws because it's going into end grain, and this feels sturdy enough. For the shelf on the bottom and the top of the actual workbench, I'm using these 2x6s. They're very wet. was going to glue them up into a sort of solid top and joint and plane it perfectly. I'm just going to screw them down and use it. I don't need them dead level or perfect. But you can see the saw binding there. This gave me a bit of trouble. I'm fine, but just, yeah, just watch. Now, this was probably my own fault for having my fingers too close. I'm fine, it was only a few small cuts. It's just kind of scary how they squirted. But anyway, I need to notch out some of the boards for the shelf. So I'm just cutting down with the saw and going across a few times so I can then chisel out most of the wastes. And then because they're very wet, I use some of this wax to go over the frame in between it and the boards so they can dry in situ, but it doesn't get onto the frame. I thought this was a good idea at the time, but saying that now, it sounds a bit stupid. I'm not actually quite sure if that works, but if anyone has any idea, let me know. Again, with the not having to be pretty but has to work, the boards for the shelf aren't precise lengths. I was having a lot of trouble cutting this wood, clearly, so I wanted to make as few cuts as possible on this stuff. So I just got it close. And then after putting the first board on by laying on the floor and struggling, and I realised I can actually just drill through the top, and that was a hell of a lot easier. So I did that for the next few boards. And then I thought maybe I'd use some of the wax on the drill bit. That might cut down on the horrible screaming noises. I tried to plane the top because while it wasn't going to be perfect, I thought I'd finish it to the best of my ability. But the shavings weren't coming out great. It was fuzzy. It left a fuzzy grain. It wasn't very good. So I'm just going to use it as is and try maybe when it's more dried out. And then this is the cheapest Irwin vise I could find. I think it's a 7-inch or so. It's fine. I just need something to get the job done. I'm not going for fancy. I'm using this 2x6 offcut as some blocking against the frame for the vise to attach to. And this is the worst jigsaw known to man. It overheats so quickly. It is slow as hell, and the cut quality is I could use my teeth to go through it more cleanly. It's terrible. If it was slow and good, it would be forgivable, or if it was quick and dirty, it'd be forgivable. But it's just terrible in both respects. But I just cut outside the line and use my plane to sneak up on it. And again, using my fingers to spread the glue because it's horrible, but it's just so much easier. I was going to cut this flush with the overhang of the workbench, but actually, when I held it up to the vise, I see I needed the full width of both boards for the screw holes to actually line up. So after it dried, I just used 4 lag screws to hold in the vise, and it's good. And I can tell now already that I'm going to regret not getting a vise with a quick release. But time to put on the jaws. I sawed another offcut of the 2x6 in half, and planed it relatively flat. I know, I just wanted to get this done quickly. And used some cardboard as spacers between the lead screw and the jaw, and then screwed it in. It was a really simple assembly, and it does the job. I couldn't fit my screwdriver in between the jaws, so I remembered I had this handy little right angle drill attachment, and then I decided actually I want some longer screws to go right into the workbench, and that should hold it even better. Now, it isn't the most impressive in terms of holding power, but I think it's more than enough for what I'll actually use it for. And that's the workbench done. It was quick, just a few days, and it's sturdy enough. I just need to tidy it off, although it will probably look like this most of the time, and get ready to use it. I'm not expecting this to be the be-all end-all workbench, but it cost me about 60 quid and a couple of days, so that's time and money well spent. If it gets me a year, I'm happy with it, so not bad. And I've got my trusty little drum stool that I like to sit at when I'm making my projects. Thanks for watching.